Welcome to What the Decks, where over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today I get to play the role of Deck Doctor. We'll be diving into a deck submitted by Jake, viewer and local of mine. That deck in particular is going to be Hrothgorn's Mantrappers paired with Malevolent masks. And today we're gonna get straight into it. The only show notes I want to toss out in advance is that this is a week B format. These are the experimental formats that I'm trying out in between when we build a deck build from the ground up. So different ways to interact with the deck building process. So far we've tried out Deck Doctor. This is the second attempt at that. And we've also tried deck deconstruction, where I bring a build that I'm really familiar with and break down the choices there, why it works, kind of how to play it as well. Even look at, how to align boards and things into the game plan. So that's deck deconstruction. We've only done one of those so far. And today is Deck Doctor Take 2. If this becomes a mainstay, I might need to get myself like a stethoscope or like a lab coat. Lab coat might be overkill, but I'm kind of a fan of overkill. Stethoscope could be pretty dope to just wear around for this segment. Maybe every once in a while, I don't know, press up against the screen, like, is it healthy? How's it doing? But Deck Doctor just being a fun name for reviewing a deck from somebody else and trying to diagnose, if you will, what I think its strengths are, what I think its weaknesses are, what I might do to tweak the deck. By the end of a Deck Doctor, the list might be tweaked just a tad, and then we'll get it posted up to the Battle Mallet Nemesis library, just as we would with any other deck that we cover here on the show. So I'm particularly excited today for this pairing because I think it's a pretty cool pairing. So whenever you're building for Malevolent masks, you have to kind of keep two things in mind. One is that on the objective side, so if you're pairing Malevolent masks with anything else, you're going to need some surges to help you get masks out. So you want to find a warband that can bring in some easy surges, and then you also need room in the upgrades to make room for the masks. Generally, you're looking at like 5 or 6 masks, and so that can be pretty taxing. Well, the reason I'm excited for today's pairing is because I think Hrothgorn is going to be able to help meet that pairing halfway. So they have 8 surges to choose from. I haven't actually re-reviewed them ahead of the show. That's something that we get to do together live. And 8, I believe. We can check that out. Actually, let's check that out right now. That's just what my memory is telling me. Let's go ahead and filter out Malevolent masks. Yeah, 8 surges, which is wild. And then in the upgrade department, I seem to recall them having quite a bit of sectioned off upgrades restricted to all the different fighters in the warband. And so they've got pretty good platform to take on the different mask upgrades there. Wait, are you a medical deck doctor, or did you just get your PhD in deckology? It is indeed a PhD in deckology. And welcome, by the way. Good to see people joining in live for the show. That always gives me energy and gets me excited. So welcome, Wellner, Jake, and Pavent. Not the Jake that submitted this. I imagine he is off at work right now. But that's okay. I'm curious when he does get a chance to see this, what he'll think. I know he's curious to hear what I think. So let's see. I think what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the fighter cards, just to give people a quick overview of what this warband has to offer. And then we'll start taking a look at the picture built by the deck that Jake has provided us with. We're going to get a full idea of what that picture is before we start like offering suggestions into the space. So Hrothgorn is one of the like big boy menaces of the game. So starts at 6 wounds, has the ability to go up to 8 wounds with one of his upgrade cards. So I think might actually, like in-house, as far as like the cards available to them in their faction deck, it might be the biggest boy in the game these days, now that we don't have Mollog starting at 7 wounds. Not a real doctor then. I'll let you decide. I recently watched the Hot Ones with Coco. Why can't I think of his actual name? But the previous late night show host, and it was the season finale. It's worth checking. If you're a fan of Hot Ones, it's probably the most like deranged episode of Hot Ones they've ever come out with, and it's an absolute hoot. And he actually brings a doctor to monitor him throughout the course of the episode. It's pretty good. All right, yeah. So outside of big boy status, he also goes up to 2 shields when inspired, which is crazy for somebody with this much health to also come with that much defense. And the damage output is pretty serious as well, right? Up to 3 smash, 3 damage, and a ranged attack here that's dealing 2 damage on either side of the equation, and 3 damage on the range 1 on either side of the equation as well. Each enemy fighter is a quarry. This almost never comes up anymore. This is a keyword that was really relevant in the Beastgrave and Dire Chasm seasons, but it's important to note if there are any cards in here that key off of it, key off of attacking a quarry. His presence in the game makes all the enemy fighters quarries. In fact, because nobody else has that, if you were to take him down, then that effect would go away. And any other cards that key off of that would no longer benefit from that as well. Trap Launcher. So this is tied to his range 3 attack. After this attack action, if it succeeded, push the target up to 1 hex closer to this fighter. And I believe this goes up to 2. Yep. When inspired, push the target up to 2 hexes closer to this fighter. So you're able to like pull somebody in instead of pushing them away. And since it's a reaction, you could just decide to drive them back as well as pull them in, which could be really interesting when dealing with lethals on the board. And his Inspire condition is the same Inspire condition across the warband. An adjacent enemy fighter is taken out of action by Hrothgorn. So then everybody else, and it has an enemy fighter adjacent to your leader, is taken out of action. So they're all watching him, waiting for him to kill somebody close to him. He doesn't have to be the one to do the killing blow. It can be a lethal. It can be a card that you brought with you. But as soon as somebody dies adjacent to this big boy, the rest of the warband inspires. So over here, Thrafnir. And 4 speed on this guy is quite a bit as well. Thrafnir being the fastest in the warband at 5, goes up to 2 dodge, gains cleave, and this fighter cannot be given attack, action, upgrades, and cannot hold objectives. This is because this fighter is a beast. So they've actually just eroded that eventually. This used to see this previously on cards like that because they didn't have that keyword giving it to them. So we have 1 beast and 3 minions over here. So as you can kind of see, the warband is really run out of this guy, and these fighters are all here to support his game plan. So you can actually play a deck where like he acts as bouncer at the door, Thrafnir can kind of be your recon, and then these 3 can be hiding behind him, doing like objective stuff. That's a pretty common strategy with Hrothgorn. We'll see if that's what Jake's built towards today. Some other noteworthy tricks to bring up is Lugin and Thwack here. +1 dice if there are fewer than 2 wound tokens on this fighter card. So it's kind of this idea of they're both still alive and hardy. So they're I like the fact that like there's essentially 2 fighters in here, and there are different cards in their deck that kind of realize that. Like there's one upgrade that is they have inherent support, like while they have that upgrade, and that makes sense because there's essentially two of them there. I think it's called like plucky pair, so it's just like they're rambunctious and they're distracting you while they're attacking you. But after this attack action, if there were fewer successes in the attack roll than the defense roll, push the target 1 hex. So this is a pretty spicy way to be able to push people. So as long as, so if they defended and this attack had fewer, like you're getting the push off, and a lot of times it's going to have fewer, right? You're only rolling 1 hammer, you're rolling 2 swords. So if their success outnumbers yours defensively, you're still getting to push them, which can be quite rude. Doesn't even matter if they're on guard because it's not a drive back. And like over here, Bushwhacker, his whole shtick is he can put a trap on the map. That trap, if anybody gets pushed into it, is it enemy fighters only? I guess we'll read through this. Reaction. After an activation, if there is no friendly trap model on the battlefield and this fighter has no charge tokens, place a friendly trap model in any adjacent hex or any adjacent empty hex and give this fighter a charge token. If another fighter moves into another fighter, okay, yeah, I thought it could be their own. If another fighter moves into, is pushed into, or is placed in the trap hex, that fighter is dealt 2 damage and the trap is removed. So that's pretty spicy. The fact that it's after an activation too is pretty crazy because it doesn't have to be him that's activating to do this. So as long as he's alive and there isn't a trap out, he can place one down after an activation. So it could be your activation that they're responding to and getting ready for their own. And Quiv here, while this fighter is adjacent to a friendly Hrothgorn, you can reroll 1 attack dice in attack rolls for the fighter's trap launcher attack action. So if Quiv is nearby, it's as if he's sitting there ready and reloading the crossbow, which is kind of cool thematically. I think there's a lot of fun thematically realized across this warband. So let's take a look at the deck. All right. Objectives. So we have 6 surges here. 2 of them are grabbed from Hrothgorn out of the 8 available to them. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that these are some pretty easy objectives here. 1 out of 4 of their end phases looks like it made it in. And then, yeah, we've got an overwhelming mix of Malevolent masks in here, which I think could be a really cool thing to lean into. So let's take a look. Arm of the Everwinter. Surge. Score this immediately when your warband removes a feature token from the battlefield or flips a feature token. So I'm going to say not even just 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, this is going to be a feature token was flipped, especially because delving exists. Yeah, this is super easy. Just push or move a fighter onto an objective, flip it. If they're in the back and it's scary to get to them because Hrothgorn's in the way, like even though that they have to take on a stagger token, probably not going to matter too much. And even Thrafnir can do this for you because this isn't about holding. This is just about being on a feature token and flipping it. Unexpected Cunning. Score this immediately after playing your 3rd or subsequent power card in the same phase. Oh, I feel bad for Kagra. Kagra's Ravager has to play 3 power cards in the same power step, and I think they have to be gambits specifically. This is significantly better. This can be upgrades. This can be across your whole action phase. This is an incredibly easy card. I'm not surprised to see it here. So yeah, we have 2 amazingly easy surges right out of the gate to help us with masks. I think we're off to the races. Audacious Aspect and Visions of Success. These are super similar. So they're both looking that you have a mask wearer and you're holding either an even objective, that is Visions of Success, or an odd objective, that is Audacious Aspect. So your mask wearer is the one doing that holding, and this is immediately after an activation step in both cases. So this is super flexible because it can be after your step, after their step. And that's going to be the main way you score these cards. There is hybridization here. So I'll dive into that. So Audacious Aspect, hybrid scores immediately after an activation step if one or more friendly fighters with a mask upgrade holds an objective with an odd value. So that's what we already covered. Or your warband holds 2 or more objectives, each of which is in no one's or enemy territory. So I don't think that we're going to be scoring it that way. Our minions are fragile. So most of them only having 2 health to offer. The only one having more is the one that's double stacked, and that's why they have more health. And they're only moving 3 until they get inspired 4. So late game, I suppose there's an alternative way to score this if you're able to leverage that movement speed. But Thrafnir is never going to be able to help you hold. So having to get out of the enemy, out of your own territory to go hold these, it's probably not how you're doing it. You're probably using easier surges like Arm of the Everwinter and Unexpected Cunning to help you get masks. And once you get those masks down, or kills, right? You could always grab some kill glory, and then you're going to be scoring Audacious Aspect off that odd value. Vision of Success. So this is the one that's looking for an even value objective being held by your mask wearer, or your warband holds 3 or more objectives, 1 or more of which are in no one's and or enemy territory. Now this goes towards your easier surges that you can score. It's not too challenging to like plant Hrothgorn on an objective on no one's territory or just over the line, and then have 2 being held in your back field. That can get you visions of success at the end of your own turn. So you could even use, I'm pretty sure they have a push tool in here. Yep, Nobbler Scramble, push each friendly Nobbler up to 2 hexes. So in a fantastic starting hand, could include Nobbler Scramble and Vision of Success. You can get Hrothgorn onto that spot in no one's territory, and then scramble 2 Nobblers into place behind him. And ideally, you're going second in that scenario so that you get a chance to play this power card going into your turn, and then get Wrath where you want him. And then all of a sudden you have Visions of Success without needing any masks. So we've got 3 surges in here that are pretty reasonable when it comes to getting your glory train going. And we have 2 more to cover. So Domino Dominance. Score this immediately after a power step if 1 or more surviving inspired friendly fighters have a mask upgrade. So that's an interesting one here. It does mean that you have to get a kill before this is going to be able to be scored. But that's not terrible. So get a kill, which is going to get your warband inspired. If that kill happened next to Hrothgorn, that's where you're going to want that to happen. And then use that glory to get a mask on somebody, and boom, Domino Dominance is out the door. So it's kind of like, in most cases, I'd call this like a kill surge just because of the Inspire requirement for the warband, but you could kind of call it either way, right? Like this is hand in hand with their Inspire. This is a kill surge. It's kind of both in this warband. I like this card more in warbands where you don't have to get a kill to get it going. Like Lady Harrows or the new Gits, or even Skate's Wild. Well, no, I don't like it in Skate's Wild Hunt because you can't score it in round 1. But easy Inspires make Domino Dominance easier. And Death's Visage. So score this immediately after a friendly fighter with a mask upgrade takes an enemy fighter out of action, or your warband's 3rd or subsequent successful attack action in the same phase. So we're going to continue to take a look at this deck before we start suggesting swaps, but this is my first card that I'd be looking at a swap for, because you're probably just looking at this as a kill surge off of that first condition there. A friendly fighter with a mask upgrade takes an enemy fighter out of action. You're probably not scoring this off of 3 or more successful attack actions in the same phase. That's quite a bit to ask, especially since we don't have a sort of scything or many sources of out of action attacks, or out of out of sequence attack action, something that you'd have like in the power step, for example. The only one I can think of would be like, well, I guess I can think of a few, like taking over Maskborn. But then again, they still have to succeed, which makes this harder. So we're going to be revisiting Death's Visage. They've got 6 more surges on their own and 2 more in Malevolent Masks. So I think we can find a better card for that slot. Let's take a look at the end phase here. Butchering. Score this in an end phase if there are more enemy fighters out of action than surviving enemy fighters. More. Okay, score this if there are more enemy fighters out than in. All right, so like if you're up against a 3-fighter warband, you're looking at, you have to have killed 2 of them before this will score. If you're up against a 4-fighter warband, you're looking at 3 of them before this will score. And so anytime you're looking at an even number, it's actually kind of like a bit bigger of an ask. Like 6 is not 3 that you need to take down, it's 4 that you need to take down. But I think the hardest scenarios are going to be when you have to take 2 of 3 down or 3 of 4 down for 2 glory. So and then there's always resurrection warbands that make this extremely difficult, like Sepulchral Guard, Exiled Dead, or similar. Even Headsman's Curse can make this really difficult. So this is a bit interesting, but I'm not surprised, like too surprised to see it here, because we have 5 of Malevolent Masks here, which means he forewent only 1 of theirs and cherry picked 1 of the 4 that they had available to them, and I don't remember them being particularly good. So we'll see if we can't offer anything better here in this slot, but I'm not overly surprised to see it. Hooded Stranger. Score this in an end phase if 1 or more friendly fighters with a mask upgrade are in enemy territory. When you score this objective, if there are no enemy fighters adjacent to 1 or more of those friendly fighters, gain 1 additional glory point. Yeah, this card's awesome. I expect to see this in every Malevolent Masks deck. So if you ever see somebody in your territory when you're fighting against Malevolent Masks, consider getting somebody next to them by the time scoring is going to happen. That way, you can hopefully deny them at least 1 point. You might even be able to pressure them into keeping this card in their hand. They might say, I don't want to score this for 1, I want to score it for 2, and I think I can. And if you can get them to hold that across a round, then you've denied like turnover in their hand, right? So they might not be able to reach as many objectives in that game, and it might be worthwhile. Like the player might have accurately surmised, you know what, I can and I will, go for this, especially if they're already down through their surges and there's enough end phases to meet their or there's enough rounds to be scored yet to meet the rest of their end phases. But it's still worthwhile to try to deny this, either to keep it down to that 1 point or to pressure them to go for the 2. And then, hey, maybe you can deny that 2 again. Solid spread here. Score this in an end phase if there are 1 or more friendly fighters in your territory, no one's territory, and enemy territory. Ooh, this is quite hard. We only have 5 fighters, and as soon as the enemy warband can reach our Nobblers, we're going to start losing Nobblars. So you're probably relying on Thrafnir and Hrothgorn to be your outer positions here, your no one's territory and your enemy territory. Once Hrothgorn is on 2 shield, he's pretty immovable. So you might be able to hold him to a spot like no one's territory. It's not the worst thing, but it's definitely not one of your easier objectives. Maybe easier early, but as you lose fighters, this one's going to be quite hard. I don't hate it though. Stoic Appearance. Score this in an end phase if 1 or more friendly fighters with a mask upgrade are holding an objective. Yes, please. This is great. Essentially, just get a seed glory earlier. You might have even gotten the seed glory from somebody sitting on an objective with a mask, in which case, well, I guess that's not providing you the seed glory for a mask, but either A, get a seed glory, and toss somebody onto an objective, give them a mask, or B, you've already been in that position for Vision of Success or Audacious Aspect. So this card flows very well with the Malevolent Mask game plan in general. Totally overpowered. Your warband holds 2 or more objectives, and more than half of the fighters in 1 or more enemy territory or enemy warbands are out of action and or have 1 or more wound counters. I like this quite a bit here. So you can always use Hrothgorn and Thrafnir to go injure the other team. Now, I'm a big fan of this card in general because of the fact that it's looking for both out of action fighters as well as ones that are wounded. So you are not punished for taking fighters out of action. And a lot of the cards that kind of look for wound counters on enemy fighters end up punishing you by not letting you take them out of action. And here, that's okay, right? So at some point in time, you might have to fudge the math a little bit by not attacking somebody who's already wounded and attacking somebody else who's wounded with like the range 3 trap launcher, just to make sure that you got enough damage down on targets. But there's tools in this deck that's going to be able to help with that too. Like if you put Vitrix's Eye on somebody and then taking over, there's a lot of different ways to make sure this is working for you. And I'm kind of imagining this game plan is really, hold 2 Gnoblars back on objectives. They're the ones who are holding for you. Thrafnir and Hrothgorn do the rest. And then we have a contingency Gnoblar. At least that's how I would imagine it. Victorious Veils. Score this in end phase if 3 or more surviving friendly fighters each have a mask upgrade. When you score this objective, if it is the 3rd end phase, gain 2 additional glory points. So I don't think you're probably scoring this in the 3rd unless you're doing already extremely well for yourself. With 5 fighters and only 2 of them being kind of beefy, by the end of the 3rd round, you're probably going to be down to less than 3 fighters, or fewer than 3 fighters. So this is the type of objective where in this deck, I'm going to take it for that 1 point anytime I can get it for the 1 point. And then if I get it for the 3 at the end of the game, I probably didn't need those extra points. I was probably already doing extremely well for myself. But sometimes that can make or break too. If you're up against like a passive warband and you just need to outscore them at the very end and you haven't been able to topple enough bodies, maybe. But I think in 90% of the cases, you're just going to take this as soon as you've met the 3 mask requirements. So, yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty reasonable objective suite. And I think we've got a pretty clear game plan here. Let's take a look at what we have to support it. So we've already looked at Gnoblar Scramble. Push each friendly Gnoblar up to 2 hexes. So the Gnoblars are going to be all 3 of our minions. And then Icy Breath. Choose 1 enemy fighter within 3 hexes of your leader and roll 1 magic dice. On a roll of channel or crit, the chosen fighter is dealt 1 damage. Okay, so somebody within 3 of our leader, and on a 66% chance, because we've got 3 channel results and 1 critical result that all can work towards this. You're dealing 1 ping damage, restricted to Hrothgorn. So, salvage doesn't go as far when we're dealing with a fighter like Hrothgorn. It's still nice, but a lot of the time, like because he's so survivable, 6 wounds. Does he have massive bulk? Yeah, he does. Massive bulk bringing you up to 8 wounds. So cards like this, they're really in here for their main purpose, and they're not really getting kind of the bonus of being salvageable if that fighter goes down, because it's there. Don't get me wrong. It's just you're not going to see it like most of the time. So this has to be in here for the core purpose, is I suppose what I'm saying is this has to be strong enough on its own instead of like, oh, it's okay, and then salvage kind of like brings it up a notch. So this helps with totally overpowered, and I think that's kind of the best thing it's got going for it. 66% is great, except for when it doesn't work. Yeah, I'm not against this card. And again, I think totally overpowered being in here kind of goes hand in hand. Ravenous Fury, reaction. Play this after your leader's failed range 1 attack action. Your leader makes 1 attack action. Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, and so the reason I always bring up salvage is it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're deck building. And in both of these cards, it really hasn't. But like, so I actually like bringing a healthy mix of salvageable cards in my deck on fighters that, well, it doesn't even need to be fighters that could like be more readily targeted. Like Hrothgorn's going to be targeted a bunch here, but like most of your powerhouse is coming from Hrothgorn. So you don't want the cards to be salvaged. You want to use them. And if they are salvaged, that's fine too, right? Like salvage is great either way. I just really like bringing a certain level of salvageability into the deck to think through like card draw. So if they identify that this fighter is a threat and they take this fighter down before I get to use this really cool effect, then I have a card in here that can cycle. And I like that quite a bit. So you'll always hear me talk about salvage because I just think it's extremely strong. But I'll never take a card strictly for salvage unless I'm super hard pressed on options. So that's just kind of a rabbit hole down salvage. Brian gives me a bit of a hard time sometimes because I like salvage as much as I do, and I talk about it as much as I do. So petition to rename salvage to dumpster diving. I mean, sure. All right. Hooded Rush. So far we have Nobblers getting pushed. So that's helping us with any of these that are looking for us to be on objectives. It could technically help with solid spread as well, but you're probably risking your Nobblers quite a bit if you're ever using it for that purpose. Icy Breath is helping us out with totally powered or totally overpowered. Anytime you can draw a line between your cards and that you're bringing in your power deck and your objectives, like that's fantastic. That helps immensely. So Ravenous Fury, it's not one that we're really going to be drawing a line to our objectives on, but it is just good. If we had to draw a line to objectives, we could draw it to Domino Dominance because we need to get a kill adjacent to our leader to get inspired. So that's one place. Or you could draw a line to Death's Visage here, right? A masked fighter was able to get a kill. Hopefully Hrothgorn's masked, and then you get 2 cracks at it. Or maybe he's not masked, and that helps with a successful subsequent attack. But again, I think we can do better with this slot. So Hooded Rush, choose a friendly fighter with 1 or more upgrades. Push the chosen fighter 1 hex. If the chosen fighter has a mask upgrade, you can push the chosen fighter up to 2 hexes instead. So not only are pushes just generally great whenever you're looking for like hold objective play, it's really any positional stuff. So like Hooded Stranger is what I'm trying to scramble to right here, is that if you're in enemy territory and somebody decides to hug you, like you can just hold. Like you can, if you have Hooded Stranger and Hooded Rush in your hand and you're like, oh, that person's just there to block me from scoring Hooded Stranger, I'm just going to wait until, the final power step. You can use Hooded Rush to move on out of the way. But this can be used for so much. This can be used for solid spread or any of our positional scoring, as well as just getting into that adjacent position with Hrothgorn. So, Maskborn. Choose a friendly fighter with a mask upgrade that is out of action. Place the chosen fighter on a starting hex in your territory. The chosen fighter then makes 1 action. After the following surge step, the chosen fighter is taken out of action. When the chosen fighter is taken out of action in this way, they have no bounty. So we can bring a fighter back during power temporarily. We can run cards out of them. So a fun thing with something like Icy Breath is we could use Maskborn to bring our leader back, and then we could run Icy Breath out of him during that power step, even though he's dead, right? And so you could play that one of 2 ways. You could say, oh, I've got both of these in hand. You know what? Icy Breath's not to play right now. I'm going to salvage that, see if I can get something else. Then I'm going to bring that fighter back in with Maskborn. You can even toss an upgrade on them while they're back out. I don't know why you would want to. in this case, but it is available to you. Yeah, so like we have the ability to bring somebody back to deal 3 damage to just protect home field, right? Or 2 damage with this range 3 attack here. So if anybody starts coming into your home field after he's gone, hopefully you can bring him back with Massborn and punish him. Yeah, I think that's a lot of fun here. Possessive Crouch. Choose a friendly fighter. Give the chosen fighter a guard token. If the chosen fighter has a mask upgrade, stagger each fighter adjacent to the chosen fighter. So here, who is this helping? Oh, this is helping so many. Okay. So once we get our Warband inspired, we have, Thrafnir starts on 2 dodge. I think I said gets up to 2 dodge during the opening, but starts at and maintains 2 dodge. So that guard token's great on any of these fighters. The one it's the worst on is Luggett, because it's just only giving him that benefit on 1 dice. Yeah, no, this card's great here. Anytime you're needing fighters with 2 dodge to survive and you can get them a guard token, it's usually worth an action, and if it's worth an action, it's probably worth putting a card in here that can do it for you for free during power. We're not drawing a line directly from this to any of our objectives, but an argument could be made that you could draw this line to any of the ones that are looking to hold, especially in end phase. So like totally overpowered would be the one that we would draw a line to from this, or stoic appearance. Because even if they then tie you, you're not getting driven off of those objectives. So it helps keep you stuck into place for your end phases here. Revealed Aspect. Pick one, draw 1 power card, or, and this gets spicy, choose a friendly fighter, including fighters who are out of action, with 1 or more upgrades. Add 1 of those upgrades to your hand, then give the chosen fighter 1 upgrade from your hand or powered discard pile. Do not spend any glory points when you do so. So this is just generally really, really good because it helps stream. I'm really hot on this card, and sometimes I wonder if I'm overly hot on this card. Like I just said, oh, this is really, really, really good, and that's because like I really like being able to streamline a deck in like reliability. Right, you're bringing 20 cards, unless you take draw actions or you have anything to draw cards. Then you're actually only seeing up to 15 of those cards over the course of 3 rounds, right? 5 in each. So a card like Revealed Aspect, at minimum, just makes that 15 out of 19, right? Because, so if you're only using this card for draw 1, then you can pretend it doesn't exist. Because if it's at the bottom 5 of your deck, you don't care. Because you didn't draw this and like have this spot that you wanted to refill with a new card. You drew that new card, and you never drew this, right? So anytime you have draw 1 for free, you're kind of streamlining the deck down from 20, like 15 or 19 cards here instead of 20. And I just find that to be really good in general, because it means you're going to see in more of your games more of your cards, and you're always going to be able to rely on those to help you without having to take draw actions to get to them, or without having to just adapt to a game plan without them. And those are all fun things in this game, don't get me wrong, but anytime you can streamline that reliability, it just helps your deck sing better. So this also, like if we wanted to draw a line to an objective, this could help with Unexpected Cunning, right? So let's say you need Seed Glory, you only drew 2 power, or like 2 gambits and 3 upgrades. Well, then Reveal an Aspect might be able to draw you another gambit that you can then play during your power. Shuttering Violence here. Choose a friendly fighter. Oh, and I guess with Revealed Aspect, not to gloss over the other bit here too, if you lose like a fighter with a mask and you're hard pressed to like find new masks, you can always use this to recycle a mask. Or yeah, at least with the upgrades we have selected already, it's going to be a mask that you're fishing for. But depending on what other upgrades we have available to us, things that we might suggest to add, we could potentially have like a universal objective that could go on any fighter that's really good, and we could go fish that back from a dead fighter and get it planted on another fighter. So, but for the most part, I think this is going to be either, hey, we need to go get a mask that's already dead, or nope, we're good on the mask situation. Let's just draw another card. So, Shuttering Violence. Choose a friendly fighter. Stagger the chosen fighter. +1 dice to the first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by the chosen fighter in the next activation. If the chosen fighter has a mask upgrade, you can reroll 1 attack dice in the attack roll of that fighter's first attack action made in the next activation. So it does come at a cost of staggering yourself, which I'm not super hot on, but it's not the end of the world. Like, you're getting a pretty crazy benefit from it, especially if you can add the mask to it. So, you know, best case scenario for the Hrothgorn player, they're able to use this on Hrothgorn. Maybe they are able to wait until later in the round where the enemy is going to have less time to capitalize on the stagger status, and all of a sudden they're looking at 4 smash for 3 damage and a reroll, or just even that 4 for 3 smashes is wild. So this card, I think, given our Inspire mechanic, totally has a place in this deck. And yeah, I like its inclusion. The stagger thing always makes me nervous. Taking over. Choose a friendly fighter with a mask upgrade that has an action on that mask upgrade. The chosen fighter makes that action. So as long as we have a mask on a fighter that isn't NV Shroud, we get to activate that mask out of sequence. And that could be adding up damage. That could be adding full rerolls to our attacks for the rest of the round. That could be shooting that range 3 laser beam off of Victrix's eye here. So Hallen Hood. We'll go ahead and talk about this one now. When a fighter has 2 mask upgrades, break 1. So they all say that. Abyssal Howl action. Choose a fighter adjacent to this fighter. Push the chosen fighter up to 2 hexes, then stagger the chosen fighter. So if you have somebody who's next to a fighter supporting or threatening them, and you don't want that to happen, you can always throw Hallen Hood on them and push them away. Now they have to charge to get back to you, or they've already charged or moved, and they're going to have a much harder time getting to you. You also get the bonus of staggering them. And in this warband particular, this is really spicy because you could use that push 2 to push them into a trap. And that trap could have just dealt 2 damage. So I think Howling Hood is one of those masks that don't always find its way into a deck. But given the trap, it has a lot of reason to be in this deck. Or even just getting a fighter pushed next to Hrothgorn and getting staggered so that you can get that Inspire going if you haven't already. Comment in the comments here. Revealed aspect. Ooh, all right, so that one seems great because it's the right kind of modal card. It's a situationally amazing card, but it always has salvage. Agree. Wholeheartedly agree. And that was from Chop. All right, so we're almost through. I guess I was kind of going over what taking over could do for you. So Eternal Smile, this is the +1 damage, and this lasts for the rest of the round, so that's pretty wild. As well as the other one I was talking about was, is it not in here, or am I just okay? Hold on, the Ice Mask. I can see it. I can't tell you what it's called. The Ice Mask isn't in here. We might need to add the Ice Mask in here. The Ice Mask is the one that allows you to reroll all of your attack dice for the rest of the round, which is just crazy good. And then Echo Guys we hadn't talked about, but Echo Guys just has natural synergies with the deck. The fact that, like, if a odd or even is nowhere near who you need, and you were able to position somebody on an objective, get them the Echo Guys, and you're trying to score Vision of Success or Audacious Aspect, you can swap it out with another one. But it also gives you a defensive bonus that is pretty great on its own for the rest of the round. Being able to say that double supports are also successes in this fighter's defense rolls, that goes a long way on all of these fighters, because Hrothgorn can get up to 2. So all of a sudden he's defending on 4 out of 6 of his defense dice. Like, but it especially helps out with your dodge fighters that start with, only 2 successes available to them between the dodge and the crit. So especially when they have multiple dice that they can throw for their defense, which most of them do. So taking over can do a lot for you. Taking over could also, funny enough, be used during Maskborn, right? So I Maskborn somebody back into play, especially if they have Vitrix's Eye. I think this is mostly where this is going to come up, but it could be with like Howling Hood as well. You bring them back. They get to do their attack or their action. Like they could actually just do one of these actions on their own, and then you could do follow it up with an action from one of those masks. It's a lot of fun. Unexpected Arrival. Choose 2 friendly fighters with mask upgrades. Place each fighter in the hex that was occupied by the other fighter when you chose them. Now, in this deck, in particular, I'm not sure I can draw a line to an objective that this is particularly helping with, or define like a super good use case for it. So I think the use case is get two masks out and then have Hrothgorn be able to teleport, right? Just, flip in somewhere. But the thing is, Hrothgorn has crazy good reach already, right? So he's at range 3. He's also got 4 movement speed, which is quite a bit, and he's probably going to be sitting about center. So he's going to be able to reach most of what you need. So the best use case would be if somebody charged. So let's say like Thrafnir charges into a position, and we don't want Hrothgorn to be charged yet himself. We can then flip the now charged Thrafnir with Hrothgorn. However, I'm not sure once you've got, 2 glory for masks out, how useful this particular situation is going to be for him. This might be worth exploring a swap in here. So especially if we can find something that aligns more with our game plan. So let's see. Let's take a look at upgrades to complete our picture. So Dark Humor. You reroll 1 defense dice in this fighter's defense rolls. Most of our fighters get up to 2 defense dice. So this gets extra mileage because roll 2, maybe one of them is a success, roll another, all of a sudden you're at 2 successes. And you don't have to kind of like jeopardize that first success too. Like maybe this helps you flex into a crit success. This is Dark Humor is generally good, and it only gets better the more defense dice you have. And then if this fighter has a mask upgrade, you can make the following reaction: Mocking Laugh. Use this after an attack action that targeted this fighter. If this fighter's defense roll contained 1 or more critical successes, push the attacker 1 hex. Again, this goes further in this warband. I'm really digging this pairing because of the trap. All of a sudden, somebody who wasn't ready to get pushed into the trap, thought they were being careful of their footing, like can be. Now, at least in this case, they know that there's an opportunity for them to be pushed 1 closer to this trap, and so it's probably not going to be into the trap, but I might do just enough to get them in line for that trap from somebody doing, a drive back or the push on his trap, So this helps position people in a worse way to end up against that trap, or it helps pull them into Hrothgorn so that he can have that adjacency. I think most of the time, if you have an upgrade like this out, you're probably already inspired. But if you haven't yet, it can help make that happen for you. Envy Shroud. So this is the mask that just says +1 wounds and then nothing else. So this is one of the rare instances where something like this can go on a large fighter, and that's because it breaks all upgrades that were already on that fighter, and it won't allow other upgrades on that fighter. So our number 1 candidate for this is going to be Thrafnir, I imagine, but really any of the little ones could take this on. So getting up to 3 means you're going to start surviving average attacks, because average attacks deal 2 damage. If there's above average attacks present, maybe you want to bump Thrafnir or lug it up to that 4. If there's just like a field full of average attacks, then you really don't want to bump Thrafnir or lug it up, because it's not going to do too much unless you're worried about pings. So these are always things that you could feel out in the moment, right? If you think that there's a lot of pings, like potential, or even just enough ping potential to come your way to change your 3 fighters' health from taking a 2 damage attack to dead once that card gets played, you can always bolster them. So yeah, just this is the type of card, like +1 wounds is always good, but they have an interesting suite of characters where you can kind of feel out who this should go on to. And then notably, he's only got the Hrothgorn upgrades in here, so we just need to make sure it never goes on Hrothgorn, right? Otherwise, he's not getting these. It'll be funny in the games where like you desperately have to give it to him, and then you could always use something like Revealed Aspect to fish it off of him, or toss another mask on him and break it. So, Menacing Posture reaction: after this fighter's action that pushes 1 or more enemy fighters, push this fighter 1 hex towards one of those fighters. So actually we've got, so fighter's action, it has to be the action that pushed, so it can't be the reaction, so it can't be trap launcher. Is this also a reaction? Lug it and thwack, yeah. So actually the Lug It and Thwack and Hrothgorn abilities that allow you to push don't actually sync with Menacing Posture well. After this fighter's action that pushes 1 or more enemy fighters, push this fighter 1 hex towards one of those fighters. So we are looking for drive back, and we are looking for the Howling Hood. Those are going to be kind of like the main ways that we're able to use Menacing Posture, and I'm not sure that that's doing enough in this slot, because a lot of the time it's going to be Hrothgorn doing the attacking, and you're going to care a lot less about pushing the fighter 1 and more about making sure they're very dead. So I think Menacing Posture is potentially a cut here. The Echo guys, so that's the one where we're able to reposition our feature tokens that are underneath us, as well as get ourselves a defensive bonus. Eternal Smiles are +1 damage. Howling Hood is the push 2 and stagger. Unassailable Stance, -1 defense to a minimum of 1. Rolls of both shields and dodges are successes in this fighter's defense rolls. There's only 1 fighter that this should go on in this warband, and that is Lug It and Thwack, because they're on 1 dodge today. So this brings it up so that their 1 defense dice is offering them 4 potential successes instead of 2. But that is only 1 dice, and a lot of the time when you're rolling 1 dice, it's not a basic success you're looking for, it's a crit that you're looking for. This would be the number 1 card I would cut from this deck, because if you give it to any other fighter, it is terrible. So you're kind of relying on a pretty weak fighter to be alive, and it's really only helping them a little bit. So I think that this is our easiest cut so far. Vitrix's Eye. When a fighter has so this is our laser beam. I was about to get into the habit of reading it again. And our laser beam has Grievous 1 and Cleave. Important to note, this is specifically an action. This is the Piercing Stare action. So you can't charge into Vitrix's Eye. You can't say, I'm going to charge, move, and then Vitrix's Eye. No, because this isn't a selectable attack profile. This is an attack profile that happens when you use the mask's action. So you have to actually use the action. This has been ruled as of the errata yesterday that this is not a super action. There was some conversation in the community about how it's an action that contains an action, and therefore it's kind of 2 actions. And that kind of falls in line with the definition of a super action. I saw arguments either way, where it's like, well, it's an action that begets an action. Like, it's not 2 actions in the sense that like two separate things are occurring. It's one thing equals one thing, which is the strongest argument for it's probably always been an action and isn't a super action, but at least we have clarification now in the form of an errata. Absolutely, this is not a super action. Lastly, filling out our picture here, we have Living Avalanche, +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions on Hrothgorn. So whereas we can give the Eternal Smile to anybody, including Hrothgorn if we'd like, we don't have to activate something like Living Avalanche. And Hrothgorn's being able to just walk around and say, hey, 4 health, which is like the average elite profile in the game. Like it's right before you get to large fighter. So it's kind of like the tippy top of what a fighter can do before they start offering an additional bounty. If you can just start walking around and threatening that, you're taking out dang near every fighter out there with your attacks. So yeah, this is terrifying. And in some matchups, completely unnecessary. And then Massive Bulk, -2 move to a minimum of 0 and +2 wounds. I wonder if the -2 move here is the argument for Unexpected Arrival. I could see that, where it's like I've reduced his ability to move so much that I just need some more tricks to help make him move, and Unexpected Arrival is probably doing that, if I had to guess. And this card's super scary. It's really hard to chew through an 8-wound fighter, so I am not against the movement reduction here to sneak this in. All right, so we kind of earmarked a few cards on our way that I had questions about. I think we can find something better for Death's Visage. We'll see about finding something better for Butchering. Overall, I actually like this Gambit package quite a bit. I kind of wish that we had room for, because we have so many mask cards, we had room for Scrabble in the Dirt to be able to redo any of these on demand. So that's one kind of wish that, like, if I was building this deck, I think I'd try to fit that in here, at least for experimentation purposes. Then over in upgrades, we're looking for, I think, potentially a replacement for Menacing Posture. And we're also looking for a replacement for Unassailable Stance for sure. And I think the rest is extremely solid. Now, we only have 5 masks today. And so Unassailable Stance can go straight out for a 6th mask, because we're looking for 3 of these, right? And so whenever we draw Victorious Veils, that's when we want to have 3 of them. It's not about like, oh, you just need to have 3 by the end of the game. Like, you're probably not going to have 3 fighters alive at the end of the game for Victorious Veils. So you're actually wanting those in rounds 1 and 2. So you really want to saturate this mask picture. And not just for Veils, but also for Visions of Success and Audacious Aspect. Now, these are probably supported well enough on their own with the 5. It's just actually Victorious Veils that's kind of stretching us to that 6. But the fact that it doesn't hurt our other objectives, I think, is worthwhile. So we're looking at, man, I gotta remember what this Frostbitten Veil is. That, yeah. Do we just have Frost? Yep. We just had Hrothgorn's cards in there. Frost. Man, I thought it was Frostbitten Veil. What do I have selected? Surges. I did remember the name correctly. Awesome. Okay, so that's for sure one edit I would make. Menacing Posture. Let's start there. Let's go to their upgrades, and see what we have. Let's start with the rest of masks. So in masks, the rest of what we're gonna have Displacing Figurine, which as an action allows us to teleport a fighter to an objective, specifically an empty objective, and then give this fighter 1 charge token, break this card. So it's one-time use, teleport to an objective. I don't think that this helps us much at all because of the action cost. Yeah. So, and we can't like light this action up with Maskborn either. So it's kind of like a true action cost. And I'm imagining a scenario where maybe you're down to Hrothgorn and one Noblar, and you really want to get like totally overpowered. Maybe it could help you in that situation, but hopefully in that situation you're also going to be able to get to the charged out status, and you're going to be able to move Hrothgorn onto a spot. He could potentially have -2 move. So if you ever wanted to consider bringing Displacing Figurine in, it would be if you keep finding yourself in that situation. But another way to just kind of guarantee that you don't ever need this is to just make sure that you're kind of keeping Hrothgorn near some objectives that he could manage to get on. So Displacing Figurine out, and frankly, I'd probably put Menacing Posture back in the scenario I was describing. But right now, I think it's worth exploring cutting. The best thing it's doing for you is when Massive Bulk is out. It's a lot, well, but if you kill the fighter that you just attacked, you're not moving anywhere. Yeah, I still think that this card is at least worth figuring out what other options we have available to us. So we don't really have anything else in masks. So let's take a look at just Hrothgorns in general. All right, so we have, I'm just playing fast and loose with my filters here. Here we go. All right, so Desperate, let's look at Famed Hunter. Yeah, you can reroll 1 attack dice in this fighter's attack rolls. I'd rather be landing my attacks and killing the fighters than being able to push into where I tied them on. So Famed Hunter would be like my vote for tossing it straight in. It's a restricted card in Championship. I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, that's what our blue. Yeah, what our blue icon there means. So a lot of these, you'll notice here on the side, restricted. So I mentioned at the top that most of their upgrades actually are restricted to specific fighters. And it looks like all but Savage Instinct that is the case. So this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions have Ensnare. That's not as good as just saying, hey, we get to reroll one of these dice. We're throwing enough dice in most scenarios too, where that's the answer, right? So until we get inspired, we're throwing, most of the time what we're doing here is we're throwing 2 hammers. That's a good profile. So we just need to be able to sneak a success, like a second success out of those. Once we get to this side and we're throwing 3s, like just being able to reroll any of those 3 is going to go way further than Ensnare. Because rerolls can also get you to crits, and Ensnare can't do anything about a crit defense, but an extra crit in your offense roll can. So let's add Famed Hunter. And then so like this is Noblar specific, which is nice because it's not like Luggett and Thwack, or are they really the only ones that get their own specifics? Yeah. So at least that's nice, is that this can go on like one of the 3 of them instead of specifically a singularly named one. I've seen this card run. It's okay. I don't think it's doing much for our game plan here. This card is hindered by the fact that it's super projected. So Desperate Parry. During an attack action that targets this fighter, before the deal damage step, roll 1 defense dice on a roll of shield or crit. The combat sequence ends and this fighter is dealt no damage, then discard this card. So on a 50-50, you're going to be able to just fully survive an attack that otherwise was coming in and actually dealing damage. So yeah, so the reaction timing is really nice there, but your enemy always knows which Nobbler like has the threat of turning that attack off. So and then I think we were kind of wise to stay away from Thrafnir specific upgrades, specifically because Thrafnir is not doing too much for our overall game plan. So like, for example, after this fighter's successful attack action, pick 1, push the target 1 hex, or push this fighter 1 hex. So you can drive back and then push a little further. So that's nice, but it's really only helping with that trap game plan. or push this fighter 1 hex, helping you push Thrafnir around. This is my favorite for Thrafnir, but I can't draw a line to anything in particular that this is doing outside of maybe solid spread for us, or maybe just helping us get more people in traps. Yeah, so I think, yeah, plucky pair. Rolls of dodge are successes in this fighter's attack rolls and defense rolls. So I think I'm pretty happy with what we've settled on for the upgrade suite here. When we remove menacing posture for famed hunter, and when we remove unassailable defense for frostbitten veil. So Jake, I hope you agree. I hope in testing that you find that you really like these swaps as well. So I think gambits are going to be pretty hard to adjust. Let's move to objectives where we kind of have the next easiest hanging fruit. So let's look at our surges here. And our goal is to see if first Death's Visage can be swapped out, and second maybe Domino Dominance, but I think overall Domino Dominance is really solid. Like asking Hrothgorn to get 1 kill is not a big deal, and in the harder matchups where you're against 3 fighters, and like this is just something that you consider mulliganing. So let's see. Yeah, let's start with Hrothgorn's 8 surges, because the one that immediately comes to mind for a replacement for Death's Visage is actually in Malevolent Masks. So it is Feast of Violence. So score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that was the third or subsequent range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the same phase. And each of those attack actions was made in a different activation step. And that's actually been errata. Doesn't look like it's made it here yet. No. But that was errated yesterday because there were some there was logic where because of each of those attack actions was made in a different activation step, as soon as you made 2 in the same activation step via something like Scything, this card would brick. Or if you did like Taking Over or Maskmorn, and now you've done a attack in the power step, this card would brick, because now each of the attacks that you've been doing have not been made in a different activation step, but have been made in like power or have been made in the same activation steps. So that was kind of preventing this card from being scored when that logic was applied. And that is no longer the case. So it now says, and 3 or more of those attack actions were made in a different activation step. So that's nice. And what this would offer this deck is another way to get glory without a mask. It's slower. It's much slower than something like Arm of the Winter, Everwinter, or Unexpected Cunning, because these can be in a single power step. You could get these. But Death's Visage, if you're not getting it with a mask kill, right? If you're not treating this as a kill surge, then it's pretty hard to get those 3 successful attacks, whereas Feast of Violence is just only asking us to have made 3. So, you know, round 1, when you're when you want Surge Glory the most, all you have to do is make it through your 3rd activation and have attacked in all 3 activations, and boom, like Feast of Violence is available to you. You have a range 3 on Hrothgorn to help, so that he can be somebody who's done both of, you know, multiple attacks towards Feast of Violence. So I don't know. Like initially I want to swap this in. I'm at least going to put it up there and we're going to talk or think about it a little bit. Because Visions of Success, Unexpected Cunning, and Arm of the Everwinter are already doing like good, easy surge work, that it's not out of the like it's not a leap to say like you've already got in your Sea Glory, you have a mask, and then Death's Visage is in here just as a kill surge. And the more masks you get out, the more fighters that are able to lock this in for you. I think I would test Feast of Violence instead. I don't feel like I'm sounding the most convincing there. But let's take a look at what else we've got for us. So here are the 8 from Hrothgorn. and Unexpected Cunning and Arm of the Everwinter are the 2 we've picked. So what else do we have? Surge. Score this immediately when a friendly Novelar's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action. Nope, that's a worse kill surge for certain than Death's Visage. Hunter's Feast. Score this immediately when your leader's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action and your leader made 1 or more attack actions that took an enemy fighter out of action earlier in this phase. Yeah, so that's tough. You have to have gotten 2 kills with your leader. He is hitting like a truck. This is 2 glories. I think it's fun to consider testing, but it's definitely harder than Death's Visage. And this probably isn't something that you're getting round 1 to get the mask ball rolling. So I respect its absence here because you should be really focused on getting your seed glory for your masks so that your engine can keep going. Flush them out. Score this immediately if your warband pushes an enemy fighter that is not adjacent to your leader, and after the push they are adjacent to your leader. Now you actually have quite a bit of push opportunity in this deck, so this is an interesting one. I would have to feel this one out before I was like, yes, absolutely, this should be the answer. But you could even use Howling Hood to just secure this for you. I kind of like it a lot. Is it better than Death's Visage and Domino Dominance, though? Probably not. So this is definitely one to consider. I'm actually going to leave it cut, though. Extra crunchy. Score this immediately when your warband takes an enemy fighter with 3 or more upgrades out of action for 2 glory. Similarly to Hunter's Feast here. This one would take a lot of time to get going, and when we're playing masks, we want to get those out so quick. So I totally again respect this one not coming out. Also in a best of 3, your warband or your opponent can just deny this. Like if they know that you have this, they can just be like, okay, this fighter is not getting 3 upgrades then. So this would never make it into a best of 3 deck for me anyways. Unless I knew for sure I could give an upgrade to my opponent. Like maybe I was playing Bane of Heroes, and somebody had 2 upgrades, and then I handed them Bane of Heroes. Something to consider for that pairing. Dinner time. Score this immediately when an enemy fighter moves into, is pushed into, or is placed in the same hex as a friendly trap model. I mean, let's see. So this is probably harder than Flush Them Out, just because it requires a little more setup than Flush Them Out does. But they're both kind of, I'd rate them about the same. And I don't know if they're better than our other options. Score this immediately after an activation if there are 3 or more friendly fighters adjacent to the same enemy fighter. This is hard. This I would not bring. Like 3 fighters means at minimum 1 Noveler is in that scenario. And what are they doing? They are off mission if they're contributing to boxed in. So yeah, immediately after an activation. And funny enough, Maskborn can't help with this. I was like, could Maskborn? Like, when does this check? But no. So I think Dinner Time and Flush Them Out are worth exploring, but like I don't know if they're better than the surges that have been taken today. So I think I'd actually land where Jake has. Hunter's Feast, I totally respect not being included so that you can get your mass plan going. And that means we're kind of just looking to see if Death's Visage should be replaced with Feast of Violence. And the doctor is going to recommend testing that out. And then lastly, let's take a look at the end phase here. I'm not sure we need to do too much looking into gambits, but we can always take a peek. We're doing good on time. So let's take a look at end phase. I don't think there's any third end phase for this warband. Nope, there's not. End phase. All right. So let's take a look at the one that wasn't taken from masks. Complete a pact. Did I call this out already? I might have. I know it registered in my brain when we were going over these that he had 5 and the one missing was completed pact. But I think leaving this one out is a super correct call here. Score this in an end phase if there are more surviving friendly fighters with mask upgrades than there are surviving enemy fighters. I think given the variability of this against different enemies, like enemy warband counts, this is extremely hard here with, you know, kind of one core fighter. Thrafnir, I tend to think that Thrafnir survives a little more than maybe she will. I guess it's because she starts out on that 2 dodge that I always think that she's pretty hardy. There's the upgrade too for her where they take 1 less damage, I believe. Now I'm curious. That stayed clicked. Let's see. Thrafnir, Toughened Hide. When this fighter is dealt damage, reduce that damage by 1. Yeah. So I think Toughened Hide makes it into a lot of Hrothgorn decks, but I actually don't think we have room for it here. If in testing you found that you wanted more time with this fighter alive, then you could always bring this upgrade in, sacrifice a mask, and then bring in the mask retrieval card. What is it? There's a gambit. Unveiled Ambitions. There it is. You could always. So I think, given that we still have Victorious Veils in here, and maybe we find a substitute for it in a moment, but if Victorious Veils stays especially, then any mask that you take out, you need to replace with Unveiled Ambitions in your ploys. So let's go back to end phase here. So yeah, Complete a Pact, I think, is like a lot of the times it's going to be, did Hrothgorn survive and is the only surviving fighter? Otherwise, I think you're really going to struggle to make sure that you have more than they do. Speaking of, is Hrothgorn the only surviving fighter? Momentarily sated. Score this in an end phase if all enemy fighters are out of action. 5 glory for doing so, but this is a win more card. If you're taking this, you should have already won the game without this 5 glory assisting you, and it's just so hard with variable warband sizes. So what else do we got in here? Top of the food chain. Score this in an end phase if your leader is the only surviving leader. Score this in an end phase if there are more enemy fighters. Yeah, I think I'd stick with Butchering over that one. Momentarily sated. Definitely stick with Butchering over that one. And Always Moving. So here's our only other candidate for that spot. Score this in an end phase if there is at least 1 surviving friendly fighter and there are no friendly fighters in your territory. Yeah, no, I think Butchering gets to stay. I will say that Always Moving does get easier as the game goes on. And in a sense, so does Butchering. Butchering's just more dice dependent. So Always Moving, you're going to be able to, once you've kind of met your objective based needs, you can kind of creep your way into enemy territory. And as you dwindle fighters, then you only have maybe a couple of surviving fighters that need to meet this. So I'd put this. So when I deck build, like with actual physical cards, what I'll do is I actually always take, so I have 2 deck boxes, one that the deck sits in, and then one that the 32 cards that didn't make it in sit in, and both come with me. And so there's the deck box that I grab to play that with my deck that I built, and then in the deck box that has my 32 cards that I didn't bring into that deck build. That's kind of my toolbox to think about. And so there are cards that I will put forward so that they're in the front of that deck box. And so whenever I like that didn't quite work in this game, or I continue to run into this problem or whatever, I have the 32 cards there to review in full if I'd like. But at the very front of it, I'll have cards that I've been thinking about as potential replacements, potential things to try out. So Always Moving would be one of those cards that I put straight in the front of that box so that I have to think about it every time I'm interacting with the toolkit. That is those 32 cards I didn't bring. So I think there could be an argument to be made for Always Moving to make it in over Butchering, or maybe even Victorious Veils eventually, since most of the time this is only scoring you that 1 point. But overall, I think that this deck has a lot of legs. I think that this is a pretty awesome pairing, actually. You're able to overcome all the fighter restrictions that would normally be in the upgrades, as stated earlier. You've got these 2 amazingly easy surges to help you get the game plan going. You have a few more to try out. So like, I would put Dinner Time and Flush Them Out. I'd put both of these in the front of that second deck box so that I'm thinking about them. Are these surges I'd like to try instead? Death's Visage would be hanging out there as well, since we switched Feast of Violence in. And so as far as gambits go, we have a little bit of time. I'm happy with where we're at. Let's go ahead and just take a quick peek at some of the other options that we could have brought. So in the mask category, we talked about Unveiled Ambitions already. You don't need this unless you plan to. So I like bringing this in most of my mask decks and cutting my mask upgrades down to 5. And the reason for that is it doesn't just become like a 6th mask slot. It becomes mask of my choosing if I haven't seen it yet. So it helps me fish out exactly what I need for that scenario. So that's another thing that Unveiled Ambitions has going for it. So this would be at the front of my deck box, along with Toughened Hide. And then Scramble in the Dirt. I mentioned we have so many powerful gambits here that we could repeat with something like Scramble in the Dirt. So pick a gambit with the Malevolent Mask symbol in your power discard pile, or add that card to your hand, then discard 1 power card. So it does cost a card, but I find that in a lot of scenarios, there's like the perfect card, and you might have a card in your hand that isn't that, right? And it's like, well, I'd rather grab that perfect card and sacrifice this other card in my hand for it. Maybe I've already gotten all the masks out I need. So like living in the Malevolent Masks ecosystem is such a great place for this card, because it gives you a reason to recycle your masks, or even throw away an upgrade knowing that Revealed Aspects is in your deck and you can go grab what you threw away back later. So this is a cool one, and I'm tempted to try to fit it into this deck. Maybe we will. Funneled Soul Stuff, terrible, never run this card. You can heal 1 each friendly fighter with a mask upgrade, deal 1 damage to each other friendly fighter. Deal 1 damage to each other friendly fighter is required, so you have to deal damage to at least 1 fighter. The rest is optional, and I don't want to be dealing damage to my fighters with this card. Quick Snack. So this is a comedic card restricted to Hrothgorn. Play this after an enemy fighter adjacent to your leader is taken out of action. If the enemy fighter's wound characteristic is 4 or more, heal 2 your leader. Otherwise, heal 1 your leader. This goes pretty far if you're up against warbands with 4 health. But you... like, it is a heal card that also requires you to get a kill. So, like, it's not as... And that's good. Like, this deck needs some limitations on giving him wounds and healing him, because he's a beast in the health category. But something like Healing Potion would be far better, where you just roll dice, right? And you're healing for 1 or 2. So the fact that you also need to, like, hinge getting a kill and having this in your hand when you get the kill to get that heal reward is good balance. Like, I've seen this card come up. I've hated seeing this card come up. And there are other times where I've seen somebody trying to heal and they couldn't get those attacks to land. And all of a sudden, like, I had, my chance to home run down the boss man. Near miss. reaction, play this after a friendly hunter's failed attack action, push the target 1 hex. So this could help if you were looking to, I mean, you're probably going to be reacting with, who is this restricted to? Nobody. So that's cool. It's not restricted to anybody. And it does help with all the push stuff that we've kind of been looking at before. Place after a friendly hunter's failed attack action, push the target 1 hex. So this can allow a drive back to become like a push of 2 and not necessarily in a straight line. So this can help you line up the 2 surges that we were entertaining. So I feel like if we had brought those 2 surges that are sitting now in the front of our 32 card deck toolbox there, we would keep near miss near them as something we're drawing a line to when we're running those objectives, and we try to find room for this card. More traps. Pick 1 feature token in a hex that contains or is adjacent to a friendly bushwhacker. Flip that token. I mean, I guess this helps. Nothing here in this game plan. Just in general, this is probably turning an objective face down, I guess. Is what that's doing for you, or helping you score Arm of the Everwinter. It's probably what it's mainly there to do, especially since this warband came out before Delve was the thing. Gotcha reaction, play this after a friendly fighter's successful trap launcher attack action that does not take the target out of action. Give the fighter 1 move token. This is super rude. This would be at the front of my toolbox deck as well. I can't draw a line to any objectives that this helps with, but I can say that warband is not getting access to charged out now. And that ain't nothing. So that, like, this is a control piece is what this is. Frozen Hearth. Pick a feature token in a hex that contains or is adjacent to your leader. Remove it from the battlefield. So I'm not sure what you're using this for, but it's an interesting tool that they have available to them. Yep. I guess this, like... And again, this is this warband came out in a time where delving or plundering, in this case, didn't exist, right? If you use Frozen Earth today, you're just inviting somebody to plunder it in for themselves later. So you kind of have to plan that out for yourself. You have to sit on it, wait for your turn, power going into your turn, play this to blow it up. And that's all that's doing. And then you go kill somebody and then plunder it in where you want. But very niche. Not something we need in this build for sure. Driven Onwards, choose 1 friendly fighter that has 1 or more move tokens. Remove those move tokens. This is really good for like being able to position Hrothgorn without charging him. So you can move into a spot. People can scratch their head a little bit and be like, okay, well, he hasn't made it to me yet, and now he's not going to be able to charge into me. Well, if I then play this going into my next turn, guess what? I am charging. So this can be pretty scary. But until you put massive bulk down on yourself, you've got really good movement speed. So I just don't think it's necessary. And that's your best use case for it too. So especially since anybody that has a move token can just move again these days. So if it's a Nobbler that you need to get into a spot, don't worry, you can just move him again. And Carnivore's Senses. The first attack action made by a friendly hunter in the next activation has Ensnare. So this is just a nice little accuracy piece. So I'm not really getting pulled to bring anything from his gambits into the deck. If anything, I'm getting pulled to bring Scrabble in the Dirt in. And I think I finally see what his use case is for Unexpected Arrival. I think it's due to the movement reduction with massive bulk. So I think that's a fine tool to keep in here. Shuttering Violence is too good to get your game plan rolling, even at the cost of a Stagger. It's probably my candidate, and it's between these two. Those would be my candidates to remove, well, or Icy Breath. I respect that Icy Breath can help you out with totally overpowered, and that it can get you a kill as just that final ping damage to take down a target. It's really fun as well. Like, it's ridiculous that he has this Icy Breath that can deal damage. But I think Scrabble in the Dirt would make it in maybe in that slot for me. And then all of a sudden you can even Unexpected Arrival twice if you're having a hard time moving the big man around. I'm gonna not insert it into here. I'm gonna leave it as kind of like that card that I would keep in the front of my deck box. And I'm gonna give this a good old stamp of approval, a bill of health. So that is the build, and we actually already have a name. A name was sent in advance, and far be it from me to try to overwrite the name of a deck designed by someone else. So let's get rid of the fighter cards here. Load. So this is the Malevolent Mantrappers. So a good name has already been selected. The final task already complete. So let's just save this nice and proper as the Malevolent Mantrappers. And you know what? I actually kind of like, I think, so Malevolent Mask Trap. So I'm trying to decide if I keep the username in the build name there. When I post these to Battle Mallet, or rather when I send these over and they submit them for me, I like Cold Cuts, for example, was our last Deck Doctor build. And I made sure that Oliver, who sent in the build, got called out on Battle Mallet as the builder of the deck, the credit for the deck. And then I get called out as, in fact, let's just go there. I really like the way that they did this. So apparently my internet's terrible today. There we go. Okay. Despite being fiber. Okay, so we're looking for Cold Cuts, and so Cold Cuts is a deck built with Rhyme Lock Relic. Here we go. So Cold Cuts, I'm gonna blow this up so you can see this. The Skinnerkin plus Rhyme Lock Relics. So they always do the name, and then the pairing by Oliver Alasam. So that makes me really happy because you're the one that submitted this deck to me. I just got a chance to review it and critique it and have fun with it. So watch Skylar doctor the deck during his What the Decks session, and then that is a link to this video. So, all right. Well, that kind of concludes our episode for the day. By the way, if you have not visited the Nemesis Deck Library here by Battle Mallet, I cannot recommend it enough. It's an awesome resource. As you can see, you can filter by pairings, by Grand Alliance. You can filter by season, as well as tournaments. So if you're ever curious what the decks in the meta are looking like from a tournament scene standpoint, you can always come in here and check out what decks were seen at the latest events and try them out yourself. So if you ever have a deck that you would like featured on the Nemesis Deck Library, please feel free to reach out to them. It says right here, let us know if you have a deck you want to see added or have any other feedback, email or Discord. They are great fellas. So, all right. Next week is going to be a return to week A. So we'll be building a deck from the ground up. I believe I have one queued up. So I'll have to double check on that. But regardless, next week we'll be building a deck straight from the ground up together, as we do on every week A. The following week will be a week B once again. I'll be just returning from the Alberta Classic. So I might do something related to the Alberta Classic for week B there. Maybe I do a deck deconstruction again. If you're interested in that, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you either in the comments below or on Discord. Would you like to see me do a deck deconstruction after I get back from the Alberta Classic on either, well, I guess on the deck I brought? We could always look into eventually having like guest decks where hopefully I'd be able to get the person that built the deck on, and we kind of run it down together. Maybe I ask them questions, interview them about the deck a little bit. All right. So in the meantime, between when I see you next and now, I will be continuing to try out the last deck that we built together, the Soulbound Dreamers, and I'll have a field report for you next week. And as stated, you can best reach me in the comments below or on the Mortal Realms Discord. You can check out all the Mortal Realms Network has to offer, including a link to our Discord at themortalrealms.com. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar, and this has been What the Decks.